Today I'm going to read you the story of Frankenstein, and we're going to be learning to plan and write a scary story all of our own. Mary Shelley published the novel Frankenstein in 1818. She was only 20 years old. It tells the story of a scientist who creates life but is absolutely horrified by what he has made. The original book's about 400 to 500 pages long, but today I'm going to read you a shorter version of the story and give you some tips on how to create your own scary horror story. We'll be looking at using some powerful verbs and adjectives and using different types of sentence to create suspense. You might want to use the pictures in the story to help you learn some of the key sentences, the new vocabulary and the phrases. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Eureka! Victor shrieked, leaping back from the sparking electrical apparatus. The lights faltered. Slowly, a sinister figure rose from the operating table. It had only been a month before that Victor Frankenstein, a student at Ingolstadt University, had made the discovery that would change the course of his life, the secret of creation. Armed with this knowledge and working in total secrecy, Victor had feverishly fashioned his creature out of old body parts stolen from the local graveyard. An acrid smell hung in the air. Candles guttered. Retreating from the looming figure, Victor beheld his creation. The sight horrified him. Pallid pieces of flesh, clumsily stitched together, made up the torso. The arms and legs were oddly disproportionate. Unsure of its footing, the monster moved awkwardly forward. "Help me, master!" it cried pitifully. As it stumbled towards him, with its arms outstretched, Victor fled, sickened, into the night. Wandering the streets in remorse, the troubled young scientist fell into a feverish illness. Weeks later, Victor's wife, Elizabeth, bent over her husband's sickbed. "Are you well, my dear?" she whispered. Victor smiled fondly up at his wife. What happened to me?" "You were found wandering the streets, wild and delirious," she explained, touching his forehead tenderly. "Thank heavens, the fever has passed, but—" She turned away, hiding her face. "What troubles you, Elizabeth? What's wrong?" "Oh, Victor, poor William." Elizabeth tearfully told of the tragic murder of Victor's twin brother, William, strangled in the woods outside the town. Immediately, Victor understood. His worst fears were confirmed when, later that day, at the mortuary, he saw the mark of the monster's fingers on his brother's neck. From that moment, Victor vowed he would not rest until William was avenged and the monster that he had created was destroyed. Months of investigating reported sightings and following leads had sapped Victor's strength. Resolutely, he tightened his scarf against the cold, cracking his whip to encourage the dogs onward. Victor's eyes narrowed. Ahead, he saw a dark form silhouetted against the ice. Again, the whip cracked. The dogs strained in their harness. The sled sliced through the snow, devouring the distance between them. Suddenly, without warning, the ice shattered. A heart-rending scream pierced the air as the sled plummeted into a crevasse. Hearing his master's cry, the monster turned. As his eyes searched the void, a single tear trickled down his scarred face. Hunted, lost, and now completely alone, Frankenstein's monster walked away into the enveloping mist. Now let's have a look at how the story is structured. The story begins with Victor shouting "Eureka!" which is what a scientist might shout when he's discovered something really spectacular. He shrieks and he leaps back from the sparking electrical apparatus. So he's in some kind of a laboratory at the beginning of the story. The lights falter. That means they flash on and off. All that electricity in creating his monster has made the lights go dim. Slowly, a sinister figure rose from the operating table. Sinister's a nice, powerful describing word. Then we flash to a month before, so we go back in time a little bit. It talks about Victor Frankenstein being a student, making a discovery that would change his life, the secret of creation. Here I've got a fronted adverbial, armed with this knowledge and working in total secrecy. I've used feverishly fashioned because that part of alliteration helps bring the story on. I've used a powerful word here, acrid, a horrible, nasty, bitter smell. Candles guttered means that they flicker, the flames flicker. Retreating from the looming figure, Victor beheld his creation. And here a nice short sentence for effect. The sight horrified him. Pallid, meaning pale, pieces of flesh, clumsily stitched together, made up the torso. The arms and legs, oddly disproportionate, meaning they're funny, strange, different lengths, which suggests they've come from different other people. Here the story moves on, wandering the streets in remorse. That means he's really sorry about what he's done. He's troubled, and he becomes so worried that he becomes sick. Then we have the conversation with his wife. She's really relieved that he's okay, but something quite nasty has happened, something terrible. And here's where Victor finds out that his twin brother has been strangled. He immediately realizes that the monster he's created is the thing that killed his brother. He vows that he won't rest until his brother is avenged and the monster that he's created has been destroyed. So he's going to go down and hunt out the monster. He's investigating, reporting sightings here and following leads. He's becoming weaker and weaker. Resolutely, another fronted adverbial, using an adverb there. Resolutely is a powerful word. It means he's really determined to set out on his quest and to destroy a monster. We're in a new setting here in this new paragraph. We've gone to somewhere cold. In the original story, he hunts the monster right into the Arctic. Here I've used the word silhouetted, another powerful word, to say that he can see something that's dark against all of the snow. A powerful short sentence here. Again, the whip cracked, keeping the pace of the story going. I've used another powerful word, another powerful verb here, devouring. So the sled sliced through the snow, devouring the distance between them, eating up that space between himself and the monster. Suddenly, without warning, again keeping the pace of the story going. A crevasse is a really deep hole or chasm in the snow. And at this part in the story, you may have guessed, Victor disappears. At the end of the story, the monster turns, hearing his master's cry. The single tear trickling down the monster's face means that he does ultimately care about his master. And he walks away into the enveloping mist. So I've left the story at the end a little bit open-ended. The monster's still out there. Here's my story broken down into a beginning, a build-up, climax, the subsequent events, and an ending. This will help you when you're planning your own story. Think about what your story is going to be about and how you'll structure it in this way. So at the beginning of the story, while a student, Victor Frankenstein makes a discovery which will change his life. In the build-up, a creature comes to life and Victor falls ill. The monster escapes the laboratory and seeks help. In the climax of the story, the main event, the monster kills Victor's twin brother, William. Later in the story, Victor recovers and vows to avenge his brother's death. He hunts down the monster all across the world. And at the end, in an Arctic wilderness, Victor's sled plunges into a crevasse and the monster disappears into the mist. This is my own version of Mary Shelley's novel, so you can take any of the sentences or words that you find in the story and use them in your own writing. As you plan and write your own horror story, think about including some of these features. Short, dramatic sentences for effect. Candles guttered, the whip cracked, silence. Try and use some fronted adverbials just like I did. Weeks later. That helps to move the story forward. It gives a sense of time as the story goes on. Resolutely, ahead, suddenly. And think about using some powerful adjectives to describe your setting. Disgusting, hideous, horrible, ugly, unappealing, creepy, eerie, sinister, spine-chilling, unnerving. These are all quite negative words or quite horrible words, but they're really good when you're writing a scary story. And finally, don't forget to describe how your characters are feeling as the story goes on. They might be panic-stricken, terrified, crestfallen, anxious, outraged, even euphoric, which means they might be really happy when the story is resolved, furious, petrified, optimistic, apprehensive, heartbroken, or overjoyed. Good luck in writing your own scary story.